Tell you a little bit about the First Bank story. It's been kind of a fun month. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary since opening here in Colorado. And along those lines, our headquarters are down in Lakewood. When the bank started, we had one location. It was out of a trailer down on West Colfax. And obviously, the bank's grown significantly since that time. At the present time, we have grown in size to about $13 billion in assets. That's a pretty large number for banks. We've got a lot of representation here from the local banks, and $10 billion is really kind of a marquee number. Once you exceed $10 billion, your peer group now becomes, Chase Manhattan, Wells Fargo, things of that nature. But one thing that's interesting about First Bank is during that time, we've been able to maintain kind of our core values and our ability to have local decision making. One of the things I enjoy working at the bank is, being able to make my own loan decisions on behalf of the bank. Being able to, support nonprofits and be able to make that determination of, is that something we're going to be able to support, by donation or staff or whatever the case may be. So right now we've got about 115 different locations. We are Colorado's largest locally owned bank. While other banks have been purchased or sold, we remain consistent in our name, our ownership, and our continuous growth. And again, that local decision making, I think, is really paramount to the success that we've enjoyed over the years. Our involvement in nonprofits, and I know we've had a lot of them here today. First Bank was very instrumental here a few years ago in helping to create Colorado Gives Day. I think it's gotten some more momentum and more people know about it. This last year, I believe the number in December, on one day, Colorado residents and businesses donated $15.7 million to the nonprofit community. Of that, this year we were proud to be able to support that at the tune of $600,000. So it is something that's important to us. We want to continue to do that. One of the things that I want to also kind of point out is that First Bank is privately held, and so we are basically employee owned. And one of the things that allows us to do is we can take and make strategic decisions for the long term rather than short-term success at times. And that vision allows us to do things, as you know, with regulation in our industry. Many of you may have seen, in a lot of places, free checking go away, more fees implemented, things of that nature. In First Bank, we've maintained free checking. And the reason that we can do that is because we believe long-term that we want to continue to grow the bank, grow our customer base, and that's been very well received. And so we see the benefits of that. But if you are just answering to, corporate America, what's the third quarter numbers going to look like, they have to make different decisions. So it's a good thing for First Bank that we're able to continue to operate like a local small town community bank in many aspects, but still have the resources to be involved in other areas. A couple other things I want to just point out. Stability in banks is something over the last few years that took on a little bit more importance. People were a little bit more concerned about that. And First Bank's extremely well capitalized. Our loan to deposit ratio, basically how many loans we make in relation to what our deposits are about 50%. To give you a comparison, a bank like Bank of America, for instance, they may be at 120%. So as you can see, what that does for First Bank is that leaves us well capitalized, meaning that we've got cash. Just like for you, if you've got money sitting in your checking account and you have a problem, you can write a check and solve that problem. The First Bank can do the same thing. Okay? So we've done that by maintaining a relatively conservative lending philosophy, and it's served us well over the years. We've done very well with all economic cycles, and would anticipate that would be the same going forward. Just want to kind of wrap up with a couple of different things to let you know about as far as some of the products where I feel like right now we're really coming back stronger. We are seeing more activity with real estate, which is good. We're seeing more activity with people inquiring about construction, which is also a positive. So we feel like, you know, things are, while they might be a little fragile yet, I think things are improving. So I think that hopefully will bode well for us going in the future. The last couple of things I want to do is I'm going to open this up to answer a couple of questions. I have some tickets to tomorrow night's Nuggets game. They are row 16. They're pretty nice seats. So if anybody wants to be eligible for these tickets, if anybody has a question for me about First Bank or banking, I'd be happy to try to answer that question. Yes, we have and continue to lend on land, and so there's numerous ways that we can do that, but yes, throughout the whole process, throughout this downturn, we've continued to lend. Tickets?
Coming down this way.
Can you use them? Exactly.
What's your refi range of?
That's a tricky question.
Is it a good time? Can we do it?
Well, you're going to make me start spouting off APRs and not get in trouble, but so the ballpark range, not taking into account APRs, you know, if you go with a 30-year fixed mortgage, you can get it probably 3 5/8, 3 3/4 right now. There's ARMs, there's all different types of products that we have the ability to do. One thing that's nice with First Bank is for many of you that are self-employed, sometimes you hear banks aren't lending. Well, the reason that you hear that isn't because banks don't want to lend, it's because the regulation has changed. And I could stand up here way longer than my 1 minute and probably rail on federal regulation. That aside, one of the nice things with First Bank is we do have the ability to portfolio mortgages, portfolio loans, which means we're lending our own capital, and we're not beholden to the government with all of their regulations. That doesn't mean that it's always going to be a fit, but many times it is. And the last thing I guess I'll point out on the federal piece of that is that while I'm very proud to work at First Bank and think it's a great banking institution, it's also important to know that this country needs a viable banking industry. We need healthy banks, and we need a community that people have options. And I would just encourage you that when you hear a lot of the negative talk about banks and lending and so forth, to talk to the decision makers. Take advantage of talking to your representatives. We get the benefit of having people come up here. Tell them that we need regulation that makes sense and not being punitive to small community banks. So that's my soapbox. But